This is going to be one of those videos that you probably need to have a pen and paper with you so that you can write all this down. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get those credits rolling. Now, in the video description, you'll actually see timestamps that you can be able to jump around the video to get to any important parts that you will need to go through. Number one, why do we need to have this conversation? Now, one of the things that has been really interesting this year is a coin called Dogecoin. And I started getting SMSs and calls from people asking me, should I buy Dogecoin? And how can I buy Dogecoin? And what is Bitcoin? These are conversations that are held every single day. And I also am in that conversation. So one of the things that you need to understand is there is a change that is currently happening in the finance sector. Now, I am a former banker, so I know a little about banking and I know a little about finance. And that's why I think you should hear this conversation to the very end. In 2008, there was what was known as the Great Depression. Now, it's not really the Great Depression like in 1929, but there was a recession in 2008. And in 2008, very many people lost their livelihoods, they lost their money, they lost their sources of income. Institutions such as banks, some went down, especially in the US. In Kenya, we didn't really see that happening, but the economy across the globe went down. Now, what was the reason for the banks and the global recession happening? Now, one of the major things that actually happened was that banks were manipulating the derivative system. Now, in the US, there are what are known as mortgage-backed securities, which means that you can take a stock on a mortgage that someone is paying, and you say that since this is a good payer, then they are going to pay and I'm still going to make my money. I'm really making it oversimplified because that is not really the focus of this video. But what happened is banks started cheating. Now, they would put together mortgage-backed securities and say that the people in that cluster of mortgages were good payers, when in fact they were at-risk payers. And what would happen is people would invest in the mortgage-backed securities thinking that the mortgages that were being used at the bottom were actually good when they were not. Now, this can all be seen. There's a movie that's called The Big Short where you can actually go and see that whole conversation. So I'll let you do that. So what happened is, on one day, the New York Stock Exchange and the Dow Jones and all the financial markets tanked. And what that did is that if you held shares and say they were at $100, the next day they were at $50, you've lost half of your savings. Now, the next thing that the government did is that the government went out and bailed banks, but never the individual investors. So what does that tell you? That the government on one hand and the banks, the institutions on the other hand, they worked together and they helped each other, when in fact they were the actual cause of the collapse. Now, when this actually happened and people were actually suffering, there was a person or groups of people that are now known as Satoshi Nakamoto. Looking at this 2008 debacle that had happened, and they asked themselves, so the banks are supposed to be our trusted intermediaries, but yet they are in cahoots with the government and people are losing. How do we bring finance back to the people? Now, in the video that I did before on the history of money, which I'll link up above, I talked about how people started with barter trade, and then they saw that barter trade had its inefficiencies. So what they did was introduce a medium of exchange, which these days currently we call money. Now, in that time, it wasn't the paper money that we know today, but it was things that hold value, like gold or silver or any other precious metal. If you could be able to receive these precious metals, and then you could be able to exchange them with whatever you wanted. Now, in that case, the Chinese government, because that was the oldest government that was there, it started doing this for people. So when they realized that they could be able to actually make transactions happen, what they did is you could go to the government and you get what is known as a promissory note or an IOU, which means that it is something printed on a paper that tells you, I'll give you 100 shillings on a particular day. Now, what tends to happen is now central governments, and I would ask you to go to that video so that we can move on with this one. But what happens is governments have the authority to print money. Now, in an economy, there is supply and demand. So what happens is anytime you want to buy a particular thing that is demand, the shopkeeper where you're going to buy needs to have it with him, supply. Now, anytime that you need a particular thing, it has a price on it. This is basic economics. Now, what happens if the supply is low and the demand is high? As a shopkeeper, if I have 3 people who are asking for my 1 unit, and I see that I only have 1 unit, what I will tell them to do in this case is bid for this particular 1 unit of supply. So what will happen is this item that I was actually selling at 100, someone will say I can be able to afford to pay you 110. So that increases the price. And anytime supply is limited, anytime supply is low and the demand is high, the price will always go up. So that is the case in a government. A government has a specific number of hard currency that is outside in the economy. And that is what is circulating in your pockets at this moment. Now, what happens is that the government at a particular time decides that it wants to print money. And our government and all other governments, they always print money whenever they feel like it. Now, in the past 12 months, 40% of the world's money supply has been printed. Now, that means that a year ago to now, 40% of the current circulating currency has been printed. What does that tell you? That there was supply and there was demand, and then we increased the supply by 40%. Almost a half of the money that was there was printed in the last 12 months. So the demand has not changed. Because of the current COVID crisis, because of the economy going down, the demand has even gone lower. So what does that do to the price? It takes the price down. Now, in this conversation, the price and the value is the same thing. So the value of the currency has actually gone down because of the government printing money. Now, in 2008, there was a similar thing that was happening. So Satoshi Nakamoto asked himself, How can we be able to circumvent the current financial system in order to bring the money back to the people? So, the way it currently works is you have a transaction that you want to do. You will need a bank in the middle, the trusted intermediary, and your receiver is on the other end. So the bank's work at this time is to confirm that you have actually given money and they hold it, and then they charge you for it, and then they pass it to the person you wanted to send to. But what if the trusted intermediary cannot be trusted anymore? Enter Bitcoin. So what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a digital currency. Now, it's not a paper currency like you would have the Kenya shilling or the dollar or the GBP or euro. It's a digital currency. Now, this digital currency was made specifically to facilitate peer-to-peer transactions without the need for an intermediary. Now, the system itself was made in such a way that it would be sufficient on its own without ever needing input from human beings ever again. So how does it work? If I have Bitcoin and I want to send it to you, all I need is your wallet address. Similar to the way in Kenya we have M-Pesa, if I want to send you money, I just need your phone number, which is your wallet, and I will be able to send it to you. So that's the same way that it works with Bitcoin. If I want to send you Bitcoin, all I need is your wallet address and I can be able to send it. In the current financial system, you would need a bank in order to be able to do your transaction from one end to another. The same way that you need Safaricom as the intermediary, you give Safaricom your money and Safaricom charges you for it and then sends the rest of the money to the other person. So remove the intermediary. And the reason you are removing the intermediary is because you want to save on cost. Now, in Kenya, if you want to move money from one bank to another, you will do a transaction that is known as RTGS, which is real-time gross settlement. What does this mean? The central bank has all banks with accounts on it. So picture it like this. What will happen is Bank 1 will say, I have 1 million shillings that my customers want to move to Bank B. And if Bank B has transactions that it wants to move to Bank A, say 500,000, what will happen is that they will exchange their information and 500,000 will be moved from Bank A to Bank B. Because we had 1 million and 500,000, that difference is what will be moved. Now that settlement with your account numbers from Bank A, the Bank B will be told this is where money is supposed to go to, and that is a transaction that happens at what is known as a clearing house. Now when these transactions happen, you as the sender are charged for those transactions because you are asking the bank, move my money from here to here. You are paying for the service. Now in the crypto space, and at this point I'm just talking about Bitcoin, in the Bitcoin space, what will happen is that you can be able to move your money from one wallet, yours, to the receiver's wallet without ever having to have a trusted intermediary. So how are transactions done in this system? I'll take you a little back and explain a concept that is known as double spend problem. Whenever you are sending an email to someone and you're busy on your computer typing that message out and you send that email, what happens is the original email that you sent is in your computer. What the person on the other end receives is a copy of your email. So that copy is sent in packets to that other person, and they can be able to see exactly what you wrote. So this is the origin of the double spend problem. What would happen if I have a digital money and I want to send it out? So what would happen in the email case would be that I have sent this money, but I still have a copy of the original of it, and what is being sent out is a copy. So then in this particular problem, what would happen is I'm able to send to several people the same money and I still get to keep it. So what happens in the system is called blockchain technology. So this is what I want to explain. So anytime you send a transaction on the Bitcoin network, the blockchain, the transaction is given a time stamp. So every transaction that you do is put some time on it. So if it is 8 a.m. and 50 seconds, that's the time that will be placed on your transaction. Now, if you try to do other transactions, they will also be time stamped, but the very first transaction is the one that will be verified. So how are transactions verified on this network? This is what happens. The transactions are actually encrypted with mathematical formulas called cryptography, where in this case, every single transaction is verified. Now, everyone on the network does some part in verifying this transaction to be true. And how are transactions verified to be true? What happens is this particular Bitcoin that you hold came from someone else, and that person received it from another person, and it all came from what is known as the Genesis block, which was the very first transaction on the platform. Now what happens is, once we have verified that your Bitcoin comes from the very first block, all this is due to solving of mathematical questions and answers are provided, and this is done by computing on a computer. Right now, the truth is you will need faster computers. They're actually people who have larger ones so that they're able to help these transactions be verified. But the point is, once they have been verified, then the money can now be sent to your recipient. Now this happens very fast, and every single transaction is charged something small to reward the person who has actually verified. So in this case, we are replacing the bank with normal people like you and me who are actually verifying the same. Now, in the case where someone tried to send two different Bitcoin at the same time, once the very first one is verified, all the rest that he was trying to send are all nullified. So what happens is, if anyone has dedicated their time and resources to be able to solve all these equations on the blockchain and to verify the transactions that are happening on the network, they need to be paid for their efforts. That is what is known as Bitcoin mining. Anytime you solve these equations, anytime you participate in the verification of the transaction, you will be paid in Bitcoin. Now, one of the very nice ways of making money in Bitcoin is through mining, but it requires you to have enough financial resources in order to make a significant dent in verifying of these transactions, because there are a very large number of transactions that are currently happening on the blockchain. So what is the effect of Bitcoin on the current financial system? Number one, it provides people with an alternative to the financial system. At the recording of this video, Bitcoin is currently at 4.5 million, and you can send 100 Bitcoin a day. So 100 times 4 is 400. That means that in one day your limit is 400 million Kenya shillings to be sent on Bitcoin blockchain. Now think of the same in the current financial system. How much would you be able to send in a day? Now in Kenya, any amount that you send above $10,000, 1 million bob, you need to have documentation to show what is the source of funds, where is this money actually going, what will it be used for. All this documentation is chasing away people from the financial system who just want to do their business without having all these regulations. Now, of course, people will say that those regulations were placed in to prevent fraud, but I told you, I'm a former banker. People can be able to bring in fake invoices and tell you this is what I'm going to use the money for, but the truth of the matter is that you can never really know how people are going to use that money. Now, the second effect of this is the fact that you are able to do your transactions worldwide and instantaneously. Now, if you're sending your money from one country to another, you will need a system that is known as a SWIFT system. Now, this means that from your bank, it goes to the central bank, which now sends it to another central bank and an intermediary institution, and the currency that you have right now would be different from the currency that you're sending. So what happens is that you lose when your money is being converted, say from Kenya shillings to dollar, and probably from dollar to GBP. You are losing at all these places. Secondly, the amount of time it takes is between 2 and 4 days. And they say a day in politics is a long time. Imagine your money having to take 4 days to get to its intended recipient. And of course, you will have to pay for the whole transaction. Now, in some banks, you charge about 2,000 shillings to send whatever amount it is outside of the country. Now, what that does is, if instead of me spending 4 days to send my money to China, for instance, I can be able to get the wallet address of my Chinese counterpart in this case, and I send my money within 30 seconds. They have confirmed that they have received the actual money. So in essence, the use case of Bitcoin is to change fundamentally the financial system. Now, the financial system currently is about 100 trillion, and I'll need to confirm because it could be even higher than that, and I'm saying in dollars. Now, Bitcoin currently is just about $1 trillion, 1% of the current financial system. But you ask yourself, why is 100 trillion market so against this 1 trillion market this much? This is because of the fact that currency as a rule is only given value by the people who transact in it. And this is seen everywhere. The US dollar is currently the global reserve because the US is currently the biggest economy and everyone else has accepted that the US is the biggest. So let's use them because they are the most stable. And that's the same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin will be given value by the more people who continue to accept it. But this is like the chicken and the egg kind of situation. So what's happening, and that is what you should know, is that every single day currently, about 900 Bitcoin is mined daily. And I explained to you what mining is. But every single day, about 1,500 Bitcoin is bought up by institution called Square and PayPal. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the demand is higher than the supply. Now the interesting thing about Bitcoin is the fact that you will never get any more Bitcoin added to supply. There were 21 million Bitcoin that were produced or that were put in the system, and they will be mined until the year 2140. So what happens is every 4 years, the number of Bitcoin available for mining per day is reduced by half, which is known as a Bitcoin halving. Currently, we are at 900 Bitcoin, and the next halving is happening in 2024, when only 450 Bitcoin a day will be available for mining. So ask yourself, if right now 1,500 Bitcoin is being bought by institutions every single day, what will happen in 2024 when ceteris paribus they want 1,500, there is only 450 available? What about in 2028 when the next halving is happening and there will only be available 225 Bitcoin a day and they still want 1,500? Demand and supply. So it is projected that Bitcoin will get to $1 million a Bitcoin by 2025. So what can you do in order to get in on Bitcoin? There are videos that I have done that are in the description of this video to enable you to be able to buy Bitcoin right now when the price is at a low, and it's even lower than it was 2 months ago. So the question that you may have is, why is price so volatile? Now, what you have to understand is that the crypto market is extremely young. It's only 13 years. Bitcoin was started in 2008, started operation around 2009. So it's a very new market. It's in a phase known as the price discovery phase. This means that people do not completely understand how it works or how it will be of impact in the society. So it's in that phase. The second reason why Bitcoin and crypto prices are so volatile is because of the nature of the crypto itself. Now, what you will need to understand, and we go back to basic economics, the reason why the prices of normal fiat currencies are not as volatile as the crypto space is because of the fact that the government and through the central bank, they always work to show up volatility. This is what that means. Anytime that the value of the local currency is going low, meaning that there is a lot of supply in the economy. Remember, we talked about demand and supply. What the government does is that if it sees there's too much supply in the economy, they pick up the extra currency and they take it away from the economy by just picking it up and leaving it in the central bank, so that in the economy there's a lesser supply of Kenya shillings or the currency in question, and the value remains relatively the same. But what happens, and what has been happening, is the fact that the governments keep on printing money. So instead of bringing out currency to maintain the value of the currency that you have, they have been putting more, so it takes down the value of your currency. That's the reason why there is increased inflation over a very long period of time. And if you ask yourself, a year ago, the things that you used to buy with 1,000 shillings, can you be able to buy them today? That's inflation. And that's brought about by the printing of money that is done by the government through the central bank. And this affects your bottom line. So if you are being paid 10,000 shillings last year and the inflation goes up by 10%, your salary hasn't increased by more than 10%. You've probably gotten 5% if you were lucky to get it. So that's the place where crypto and especially Bitcoin come in. Because of the fixed number of Bitcoin that is ever going to be available, 21 million, you will not have inflation on the crypto itself. Currently, there are over 18 million cryptos already in circulation, and only 3 million Bitcoin remain to be mined, to be put into the economy. And as I told you earlier, that will happen in the year 2140 because of the principle of Bitcoin halving that is happening every 4 years. So what can you expect when you get into this crypto space? And just for this purpose, I'm talking about Bitcoin. The price will be volatile. The price will go up and it will go down. But the fact of the matter is that the value still remains. And the value, like we discussed earlier, the value is determined by the users of the currency. If today we decided that we are no longer going to use the US dollar, then its value goes down because the value is in the people deciding that it has value. That's one thing that very many people who are against crypto fail to understand. At the moment, the crypto market is valued at $2 trillion. $2 trillion has already been placed into the economy. And the question that you need to ask yourself, how many people are already in this space? Now, anytime you watch the news, you will find new people talking about Dogecoin, talking about all these other cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin is at the forefront. So is Bitcoin the only cryptocurrency? There are over 9,000 cryptos in the space. Now you don't need to invest in all of them. Similar to, we have close to 200 countries. You don't have to have all the currencies in the world in order to do trade. Now you need to learn about these currencies that I'm going to mention now. Number one, of course, we've spent a long time talking about Bitcoin. The second one that you need to think about is called Ethereum. And there is a video that has been done by my fellow YouTuber called Olive, which I'll also link in the description below, talking about Ethereum and dApps and NFTs. which I think is a good video that you should go and watch. I wouldn't want to replicate the same things that she says in that video. Now, that is the number 2 currency. It's valued currently at about almost $500 billion. It's currently half of the size of Bitcoin. The third is called XRP, which is called Ripple. At the moment, they are having a case with the SEC, but that case may go away, but it is a currency that you need to look at. The fourth one is called ADA or Cardano. It is a competitor to Ethereum because of the fact that you can be able to build decentralized apps on the same. The fifth one is Dogecoin. Now, Dogecoin is a meme coin, but it has been in the news for quite a while, and I thought you should know about it as well. So you had me talk about a meme coin. So there are 3 main types of cryptocurrencies. And the first is project-backed cryptos. These are cryptos that have been developed by the developers for a specific purpose, which means that they are planning to do things based on blockchain technology. So they create what are known as tokens or coins that will enable you to take advantage of the projects that they are doing. Ethereum is the largest project coin because it was built to have projects on top of it, and of course that video by Olive will help just to get into the nitty-gritty of the same. The second type of cryptocurrency are called meme coins. These are coins that do not have any project that they are trying to solve, but for the fun of it, that coin was actually created. The most known one and the only one that I would place in this category is Dogecoin, because even the person who created Dogecoin said that he created it as a joke. So that's the reason why he created it. And every single person who uses that particular coin needs to understand that the owner did not create it for any value apart from just poking fun at cryptos. The third type of cryptocurrency are called pump and dump coins. These are made to look like project coins. They are made to look like meme coins, but they are actually schemes by the people who created them to increase their value. And then when people look at it and they see the news around this new crypto, they will run to it, and then they end up losing their money. So one very recent one is called Shiba Inu coin. This is a coin that was created with the same kind of look of Dogecoin, and it was created specifically by people who wanted that people would get into the coin. Once it was listed on exchanges, they would dump it. So this is something that you need to be really careful about, especially when someone comes to you and tells you this is a coin that will gain value very quickly. That is most likely a pump and dump coin. Another coin in this category is called SafeMoon, which has gotten a lot of traction in the last 1-2 months, where people have come in and they have experienced the same thing. Where in essence what happens is the people who bought this SafeMoon very early on, they tend to benefit, and the people who have come in later will lose their money. Similar to what is happening in a Ponzi scheme, in a pyramid scheme. So you need to do your research well in order to find out whether you're investing in a project coin or a meme coin or a pump and dump coin. The risks on all these 3 are very different, but of course we've talked about the volatility of cryptos. So this video is created for you who had no idea what to make of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Remember that whenever you are investing, it is possible to make money and it is also possible to lose money as well. Make good financial decisions when it comes to cryptos, but at least I have told you the basics of what is needed so that whenever you see the Bitcoin price going up higher than it has ever gone, higher than $64,000, you'll not say that I did not tell you. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.